Hi everyone. Welcome back to Eastern Brush, Western Soul, a channel where we share our love for traditional Eastern ink painting and dive into fascinating stories behind ancient books and their translations. Today we're exploring a unique gem from Chinese literary history, the complete illustrated collection of strange tales from a Chinese studio, Liaozhai. This extraordinary work is a beautifully illustrated companion to the famous Strange Tales from a Chinese studio, Liaozhai Zhiyi, a Qing Dynasty anthology of nearly 500 short stories by Pu Songling. These tales delve into a world of fox spirits, ghosts, and supernatural beings, offering a vivid glimpse into 17th century Chinese society. The complete illustrated collection features hand-painted story scenes paired with the original text. The volumes are folded accordion style, with pink speckled gold paper on the first page, a contents page on the second, and paired illustrations and text on subsequent pages. Bound with song brocade covers and wooden boards, the collection was originally composed of 90 volumes, though only 23 are known to survive today. These surviving volumes are scattered across institutions worldwide, including 17 at the Austrian National Library and 1 at Geneva's Martin Bodmer Foundation. Individual volumes have also surfaced in prestigious auctions, fetching impressive sums. Research suggests these illustrations date back to the Guangxu period, late Qing Dynasty, and are the earliest known depictions of Liaozhai stories, bridging a gap of over a century in visual representations of Pu Songling's work. Pu Songling himself, also known as Master of Liaozhai, lived from 1640 to 1715 in what is now Zibo, Shandong Province. His imaginative storytelling and sharp social observations continue to captivate readers and inspire artists around the world. Let's dive in and discover the intricate beauty and cultural significance of this rare treasure together. We're picking up from volume 8 of the Liaozhai Guangxu, as the first 7 volumes remain lost to time. Last time we covered volume 9, and the 10th volume is also missing, so today we're diving into volume 11 and 4 of its captivating stories, Nie Xiaoqian, Shu Mangcao, Fengyang Scholar, and Zhu Er. Let's begin with Nie Xiaoqian, a story that has been adapted into numerous films and television series, especially in Asia. The story starts with Nie Xiaoqian, a man from Zhejiang known for his generosity and integrity. He often boasted that he had never been enticed by another woman. One day, while traveling to Jinhua, he stopped at a temple on the outskirts of town to rest. The temple was grand, though the surrounding weeds had grown taller than the buildings, indicating that it had been abandoned for some time. The monks' quarters were partially open, and there was only one small house to the south, with a door lock that seemed new. Looking further, Nie Xiaoqian noticed thick bamboo growing near the temple steps and a large pond filled with wild lotus flowers. He found the place peaceful and serene, perfect for his stay. At that time, there was an exam being held in the city, making accommodation expensive, so Nie decided to stay in the temple and wandered around until the monk returned. As the sun set, a scholar appeared and opened the door to the small southern house. Nie Xiaoqian greeted him and expressed his wish to stay. The scholar, who introduced himself as Yan Qixia, explained that he too was temporarily lodging there and welcomed Nie. Nie Xiaoqian, pleased, set up a simple bed from straw and wooden boards, intending to stay long-term. That night, under the clear moonlight, the two men sat on the temple porch and exchanged names. The scholar explained that he was from Shanxi, and his voice didn't sound like a Zhejiang native, which puzzled Nie. After a while, they ran out of things to talk about and went to bed. But Nie, unable to sleep in the new place, soon overheard voices coming from the northern part of the temple. Curious, he sneaked to the window and saw a woman in her 40s talking to an elderly woman. They were conversing under the moonlight, and Nie overheard their conversation. The woman mentioned a girl named Xiaoqian, who had been absent for a long time, and the elderly woman seemed concerned but assured her that the girl would soon return. Just then, a beautiful young girl appeared, and the elderly woman jokingly praised her looks, calling her as captivating as a painting. Nie Xiaoqian, assuming they were just neighbors, went back to bed. But later, he was startled when the young girl entered his room. She suggested, in a bold and seductive manner, that they share marital bliss under the moonlight. Ning, shocked, refused and warned her that such behavior would ruin both their reputations. She insisted it was a secret, but Ning rebuffed her, threatening to call the scholar if she didn't leave. Finally, she left, but returned shortly afterward and placed a gold ingot on his bedding. Ning, outraged by the bribe, threw it outside, declaring it ill-gotten wealth. The girl, ashamed, retrieved the gold and muttered to herself, calling him heartless. The next morning, a scholar from Langshi arrived for the exam, but by nightfall, he mysteriously died with a small hole in the center of his foot, blood oozing out. No one could explain it. That night, his servant met the same fate. When the scholar Yan Qixia returned, Ning asked him about the deaths, and Yan suspected it was the work of a ghost. Later, the young girl returned to Ning Kaichen, confessing she was Xiaoqian, a ghost who had died at 18 and was buried near the temple. She had been forced by demons to perform degrading acts, but Ning's uprightness had impressed her. She warned him that a demon might harm him that night, but there was a way to protect himself. She advised him to stay close to Yan Qixia, as she dared not approach him due to his exceptional nature. Xiaoqian explained that her method of luring people was by using a needle to pierce their feet, causing them to lose consciousness so she could drink their blood, feeding it to the demons. Xiaoqian tearfully asked Ning to bury her bones in a peaceful grave, saying it would be like giving her a second life. She told him the place would be marked by a white poplar tree with a crow's nest. And with that, she disappeared into the night. The next day, Ning was afraid Yan might go out, so he invited him early. After the fourth watch, he had prepared food and wine, closely observing Yan's behavior, and asked him to sleep in the same room. Yan refused, saying that he was reclusive and enjoyed peace. Ning insisted and forcibly moved his luggage. Yan had no choice but to move the bed over and said, "I know you are a man of great virtue, and I admire you deeply. There are some things I cannot reveal easily, but I ask that you do not open my boxes, for it would be harmful to both of us." Ning respectfully agreed. Afterward, they both lay down, with Yan placing his box on the windowsill. He soon fell into a deep sleep, snoring loudly. Ning, unable to sleep, noticed a shadow outside the window around the first watch. The figure drew near, peeking through the window with shining eyes. Just as Ning was about to call out to Yan, something shot out of the box like a blazing white thread, smashing through the window's lattice, then immediately returned to the box, disappearing like a flash of lightning. Yan quickly woke up. Ning pretended to sleep, but secretly watched. Yan moved the box and checked it, pulling out something. He sniffed it in the moonlight. Ning saw it was a small object, glowing white and about 2 inches long, the width of a chive leaf. After examining it, Yan carefully wrapped it several times and placed it back in the box, muttering, "What kind of old demon has such audacity to damage my box?" He then lay back down. Ning, astonished, got up and asked Yan, telling him what he had seen. Yan replied, "Since we are now close, there is no need to hide the truth. I am a swordsman. If it weren't for the window's lattice, that demon would have died then and there. Even though it didn't die, it was injured." Ning asked, "What is it that you are hiding?" Yan replied, "It's a sword. I could smell the demonic aura from it." Ning wanted to see it, and Yan generously showed it to him. It was a small, gleaming sword. Ning was even more impressed with Yan. When morning came, there were bloodstains outside the window. Ning left the temple and headed north. He saw a white poplar tree growing among some neglected graves, and on it was a crow's nest. After arranging the grave relocation, Ning packed his things and prepared to return. Yan sent him off, their bond deepening. He gave Ning a tattered leather bag, saying, "This is a sword bag. Keep it well. It can ward off evil and drive away ghosts." Ning expressed a wish to learn swordsmanship, but Yan replied, "A man like you, honorable and upright, could be a swordsman, but you are a person of wealth and status, not someone who should walk this path." Ning made an excuse about a sister being buried there, and after exhuming the woman's remains, he wrapped them in clothes and bedding and took a boat home. Ning's study was located next to a wilderness, and he built a tomb there, burying Xiaoqian outside his study. During the memorial, he prayed, saying, "Pity you, a lonely soul. I bury you beside my study, where you can hear songs and weeping, free from the torment of malevolent spirits. Please drink this cup of water, though it is not clean or sweet. I hope you do not despise it." After the prayer, he was about to leave when someone called from behind, "Please wait. Let me walk with you." Ning turned and saw it was Xiaoqian. She joyfully thanked him, saying, "Your integrity is so great that if I died 10 times, I could never repay you. Please let me follow you back to see your parents and serve you as a maid. I would never regret it." Ning looked at her carefully. Her skin was fair with a tinge of pink, her feet slender and delicate like young bamboo shoots, and by daylight, even more beautiful and tender. So, Ning agreed to bring her to his study, asking her to wait for a moment while he went inside to inform his mother. His mother was shocked when she heard the news. By this time, Ning's wife had been ill for a long time, and his mother cautioned him not to let it slip, as it might frighten his wife. Before she finished speaking, Xiaoqian had already gracefully entered and knelt on the floor. Ning said, "This is Xiaoqian." His mother looked at her in fear, unsure of what to do. Xiaoqian addressed his mother, saying, "I am a wandering soul, far from my family and brothers, but I am deeply grateful for the care of the noble son. I wish to serve as a maid to repay his kindness." Ning's mother, seeing her gentle beauty, finally dared to speak, saying, "Little lady, my son is fortunate to have your regard, but he is my only child, and I hope for him to carry on the family name. I cannot allow him to marry a ghost bride." Xiaoqian replied, "I truly have no ulterior motives. I am a soul from the underworld. Since I cannot earn your trust, please let me serve your son as a brother. I will live with you and care for you day and night. What do you think?" His mother, moved by her sincerity, agreed. Xiaoqian then wanted to meet the daughter-in-law, but Ning's mother explained she was ill, so Xiaoqian refrained. She immediately entered the kitchen and took over the household chores, behaving as though she had always lived there. As night fell, Ning's mother grew fearful and told Xiaoqian to return to her room, not offering her a bed. Xiaoqian understood the intent and left immediately. She passed by Ning's study, considered entering, but then hesitated and paced outside the door as though afraid of something. Ning called her, and Xiaoqian said, "The sword energy inside is intimidating. I avoided you earlier on the road for this reason." Ning understood it was the sword bag, so he moved it to another room, and only then did Xiaoqian go in. She sat near the candlelight, silently for a while, before asking, "Do you read at night? I studied the Sutra of the Perfection of Wisdom when I was young, but I've forgotten most of it. Please lend me a scroll, and when the night is quiet, guide me through it." Ning agreed. Xiaoqian sat silently again, saying nothing. By the time the second watch approached, she had not left. Ning urged her, but she sadly said, "I am a lone soul from afar, and I am particularly afraid of desolate graves." Ning replied, "There is no bed for you here, and we are siblings, so it would be better not to raise suspicion." Xiaoqian stood up, her face filled with sorrow as if about to cry. She walked hesitantly toward the door, disappearing down the stairs. Ning felt secretly sorry for her and thought about asking her to stay in another room, but he feared his mother's reproach. Xiaoqian came to greet his mother early the next morning, bringing a basin to assist with her washing. She worked tirelessly, always pleasing his mother. By dusk, she would excuse herself, often returning to the study to read scriptures by candlelight. When she saw Ning was about to sleep, she would quietly leave. Earlier, Ning Sheng's wife had been ill and could no longer manage household chores, leaving his mother exhausted. Since Xiaoqian's arrival, his mother had felt very at ease and was deeply grateful. Over time, she became increasingly affectionate towards Xiaoqian, treating her like her own daughter. She even forgot that Xiaoqian was a ghost and could not bring herself to ask her to leave at night, so they started sleeping and waking up together. When Xiaoqian first arrived, she refused to eat or drink anything, but after half a year, she gradually started to drink thin rice porridge. Both Ningsheng and his mother spoiled her and avoided mentioning that she was a ghost, so no one else knew. Soon, Ningsheng's wife passed away. Ningsheng's mother secretly considered marrying Xiaoqian as a wife, but feared it would be detrimental to her son. Xiaoqian, sensing her mother's thoughts, seized the opportunity to tell her, "Having lived here for more than a year, Mother must have understood my heart. I came here with your son not to harm others, but because he is a man of great integrity, respected by all. I simply wish to rely on him for a few years in the hope that I may be granted a title by the emperor and have some honor even in the underworld." The mother, understanding that Xiaoqian meant no harm, was still worried that she could not bear children. Xiaoqian reassured her, saying, "Children are a gift from heaven. Your son is destined to have 3 sons who will carry on the family name. Having a ghost wife will not prevent him from having descendants." The mother believed her and discussed it with her son. Ningsheng, delighted, hosted a banquet and informed relatives and friends. Some requested to meet the new bride, and Xiaoqian, dressed in fine clothes, calmly came out to greet them. Everyone in the room was astonished. Not only did they not suspect she was a ghost, but some even thought she was a fairy. Soon, Ningsheng's close relatives brought gifts and congratulated Xiaoqian, eager to interact with her. Xiaoqian was skilled at painting orchids and plum blossoms, always gifting her paintings in return. Those who received her paintings cherished them as precious treasures. One day, Xiaoqian was sitting at the window, looking down, her expression melancholic, as though she had lost her soul. She suddenly asked, "Where is the skin bag?" Ningsheng replied, "Because you were afraid of it, I placed it in another room." Xiaoqian said, "I've been living with the breath of the living for a long time now, and I am no longer afraid. It should be hung by the bed." Ningsheng asked her what was wrong, and Xiaoqian replied, "For the past 3 days, I've felt uneasy. I think it's a monster from Jinhua who resents me for hiding away and fears it might find me here eventually." Ningsheng retrieved the skin bag, and Xiaoqian examined it carefully. She said, "This is the head of a sword immortal used to disguise a human head. It's so worn out, I can't imagine how many people it has killed. Even now, seeing it gives me goosebumps." She then hung the sword bag by the bed. The next day, she had it moved to the door. That night, sitting in front of the candle, she told Ningsheng not to sleep. Suddenly, something flew down like a bird, and Xiaoqian hurriedly hid in the curtains. Ningsheng looked and saw that it was a creature resembling a night demon, with electric eyes and a blood-red tongue, its claws stretching out. It paused at the door for a long time, then slowly approached the skin bag and tried to tear it open. Suddenly, there was a loud crack, and the skin bag grew to the size of 2 bamboo baskets. A ghostly figure appeared, half of its body protruding, and it yanked the night demon inside. The room went silent, and the skin bag shrank back to its original size. Ningsheng was both terrified and astonished. Xiaoqian emerged, very pleased, and said, "It's all over." Together they looked into the skin bag and found that it contained only a few doughts of clear water. Years later, Ningsheng passed the imperial examination and became a jinshi. Xiaoqian had a son, and Ningsheng took a concubine, who also bore a son. The 3 boys grew up to hold official positions, and their reputations were outstanding. This is a chilling folktale about a poisonous plant called Shu Mangcao, which is often compared to the kudzu vine because it spreads rapidly. The plant has purple flowers that look like bean flowers. If someone were to accidentally eat it, they would die instantly and turn into what's known as a Shui Mangge, or waterman ghost. According to legend, these ghosts cannot reincarnate on their own. Instead, someone else who has experienced a similar fate must take their place for the spirit to move on. That's why, in the region around the Taohua River in Chu, there are said to be so many Shuimang ghosts. Now, the people from Chu have this custom of calling people born in the same year Tong Nian, meaning same year. When visiting each other, they address one another as Geng Shong or Geng Di, and the younger generation refers to them as Geng Bo. Kumbor. One day, a scholar named Zhu, who was also from Chu, was on his way to visit a Tongnian. He was parched and desperately needed a drink. Suddenly, he spotted a roadside shelter with an old woman offering tea. Feeling grateful, Zhu hurried over. The old woman warmly welcomed in and served tea, but as he smelled it, he noticed it had a strange, off-putting odor. It didn't smell like tea at all. He put the cup down and got up to leave, but the old woman blocked his path and called out, "Sanyang, bring a good cup of tea!" Soon, a young girl, no more than 14 or 15, appeared. She was extraordinarily beautiful, with sparkling jewelry on her fingers and wrists, glowing so brightly that they seemed to reflect his image. Zhu was immediately entranced by her and took the tea she offered, noticing it smelled wonderful. He drank it all, wishing for more. As the old woman turned to leave, Zhu, in his fascination, grabbed the young girl's delicate wrist and stole a ring from her finger. She smiled shyly, and Zhu, further captivated, asked about her background. The girl replied, "Come back tonight, I'll still be here." Before leaving, Zhu took some of the tea leaves and the ring, hiding them on his person. Later, when Zhu arrived at his Tongnian's house, he began to feel uneasy, suspecting the tea might have caused it. He told his friend what had happened. His friend was horrified and said, "This is bad. This must be the work of a Shui Mang ghost. My father was killed the same way. There's no cure. What should we do?" Zhu immediately checked the tea leaves he had hidden, and sure enough, they were Shui Mang, the poisonous plant. He also showed the ring and described the girl. His friend thought for a moment and said, "That must be Ko San Niang." When Zhu asked how he knew, his friend explained, "She's the daughter of a rich family in the South Village, the Ko family. She was known for her beauty, but a few years ago she accidentally ate the Shui Mang plant and died. It must be her spirit that is causing trouble." There was a local belief that if you encounter a Shui Mang ghost and know the ghost's name, you can cure yourself by boiling water with the pants they wore in life and drinking it. Zhu's friend rushed to the Ko family to explain the situation, begging them to help. However, the Ko family, knowing that someone had already taken the daughter's place, refused to assist, believing this would allow her soul to be reincarnated. Feeling helpless, Zhu's friend returned and told Zhu. In his anger, Zhu swore, "When I die, I will make sure that girl does not reincarnate." Just as he said this, Zhu suddenly collapsed and could no longer move. His friend carried him back to his home, but as soon as they reached the door, Zhu died. Zhu's mother wailed and cried, burying him. After his death, Zhu left behind a son who had just turned 1. His wife couldn't stay loyal to him and remarried after 6 months. Zhu's mother, left alone to raise her grandson, grew weary and cried every day, devastated by the loss. One day, while Juseng's mother was holding her grandson and crying in the house, Juseng suddenly appeared without a sound. His mother was startled and wiped her tears, asking him about his situation. Juseng replied, "I heard you crying from beneath the ground, and my heart was deeply moved. That's why I've come early to serve you. Though I have died, I have already married, and my wife will soon come to help you as well. Please don't be sad anymore." His mother, in shock, asked, "Who is your wife?" Juseng answered, "The Ko family never helped me, and I resent them for it. After I died, I was determined to find Ko Sanyang, but I didn't know where she lived. Recently, I met a gengbo, a term for a fellow who shares the same age, who kindly told me where she was. When I went to look for her, she had already been reborn into the Ren family. I hurried to Ren's house and brought her back forcibly. Now she is my wife, and we live very harmoniously together with no troubles." A moment later, a woman entered the house dressed beautifully. Upon seeing Juseng's mother, she knelt down to greet her. Juseng said, "This is Ko Sanyang." Though his wife was no longer alive, Juseng's mother felt a sense of comfort. Juseng instructed Sanyang to help with the household chores. Though she wasn't accustomed to them, her gentle and affectionate nature made her easy to love. The two of them settled in and stayed. Sanyang requested that Juseng's mother inform her family, but Juseng disagreed. However, his mother, following Sanyang's wish, eventually informed the Ko family. Upon hearing the news, Ko's elderly parents rushed to Juseng's house, and seeing that it was indeed their daughter, they couldn't help but burst into tears. Sanyang quickly tried to calm them. Seeing that Juseng's family was poor, Ko's mother felt sorrowful. Sanyang comforted her, saying, "I'm already a ghost, so what is there to worry about poverty? Juseng and his mother have treated me with great kindness, and I have decided to stay here." Ko's mother then asked, "Who was the old woman who was with you serving tea?" Sanyang replied, "Her surname is Nie. Because she is old and feels ashamed of her inability to deceive passers-by, she asked for my help. She has now been reborn into a family that sells wine in the county town." After that, Sanyang turned to Zhu and said, "Now that I've become your wife, shouldn't you visit my parents? How can I feel right about this?" Zhu immediately bowed to the co-elders. Sanyang then went into the kitchen to cook a meal for her parents. Ko's mother, seeing how poor Zhu family was, became deeply sad. After returning home, she sent 2 servants to assist Sanyang and also sent 100 pounds of silver and several bolts of cloth. Occasionally, she sent wine, meat, and other gifts, which improved Zhu mother's living conditions. Ko's family also often invited Sanyang to visit, and after a few days, Sanyang would always say, "There's no one at home, you should send me back." If they tried to keep her, Sanyang would always gracefully return on her own. Ko's father even built Zhu a large, luxurious house. However, Zhu never visited the Ko family. One day, a villager who had been poisoned by waterman grass suddenly came back to life. People began to gossip, thinking it was a strange event. Zhu said, "It was I who brought him back to life. He was harmed by the waterman ghost Li Ju, but I drove Li Ju away, and that's how I saved him." His mother asked, "Why didn't you find someone to take your place?" Zhu replied, "I hate these waterman ghosts who seek replacements for death. I want to drive them all away, but I would never engage in such evil acts myself. Besides, I am happiest serving you, and I don't wish to be reborn." Since then, whenever someone was poisoned by the waterman grass, they would prepare a lavish feast and come to Zhu house to pray, and their prayers would always be answered. Several years later, Zhu mother passed away. Zhu and his wife were deeply saddened but did not receive visitors who came to mourn. Instead, they ordered their son to wear mourning clothes and perform the funeral rites on their behalf. After burying his mother, 2 more years passed, and Zhu arranged a marriage for his son. The new wife was the granddaughter of Ren Shilang, an official. Initially, Ren Shilang's favorite concubine had given birth to a girl, but she died within a few months. Later, when Ren Shilang heard the strange tale of how Sanyang had been reborn into his family and was brought back by Zhu, he rushed to Zhu's house and recognized Zhu as his son-in-law. Over time, Ren Shilang arranged for his granddaughter to marry Zhu's son, strengthening the ties between the 2 families. One day, Zhu said to his son, "Because I have done good deeds in the world, God has appointed me as the guardian of the 4 rivers and dragons. It is time for me to leave." Shortly afterward, 4 horses appeared in the yard, pulling a yellow-covered carriage. The horses were adorned with scales of armor. Zhu and his wife, dressed in their finest clothes, boarded the carriage together. Their son and daughter-in-law cried and bowed to the ground. In the blink of an eye, the carriage and horses vanished without a trace. On the same day, the Ko family saw their daughter, who came to bid farewell to her parents, speaking words that were the same as Zhu. Her mother wept and tried to hold her back, but Sanyang said, "Zhu has already gone." After she left the house, she disappeared instantly. Zhu's son was named Zhu Yi, with the courtesy name Lichen. After receiving the Ko family's approval, he had Sanyang's remains buried alongside Zhu. The scholar from Fengyang. In Fengyang County, there was a scholar preparing to travel far for his studies. Before leaving, he told his wife, "I'll return in 6 months." However, months turned into over 10, and there was no word from him. His wife missed him terribly every day. One night, as the moonlight streamed through the gauze window, she lay awake in bed, her longing for her husband overwhelming. Tossing and turning, unable to sleep, she suddenly saw a beautiful young woman enter the room. The visitor wore her hair adorned with pearl flowers and was dressed in a crimson skirt. Lifting the curtain, the woman smiled and asked, "Sister, are you longing to see your husband?" The wife eagerly nodded and got out of bed. The woman invited her to follow, assuring her that the journey would not be difficult, and under the moonlight they began walking. After a short distance, the wife, unable to keep pace, asked to return home to change her shoes. The woman helped her sit by the roadside, removed her own shoes, and lent them to the wife. To the wife's delight, the shoes fit perfectly, and with newfound energy, she continued walking with the woman at an astonishing speed. Soon, they encountered her husband riding a white mule. Startled to see his wife, he quickly dismounted and asked, "Where are you going?" She replied, "I'm coming to find you." He then asked about the woman accompanying her, but before the wife could respond, the woman laughed and said, "Let's save the questions for later. Your wife has been on the road all night, and you've also been traveling through the night. You both must be tired. My home is nearby. Why not rest there and continue your journey tomorrow?" Looking around, they noticed a village just a few steps away. The three of them entered a courtyard, where the woman woke her servant to prepare a meal for the guests. "The moonlight is so bright tonight," she said. "We don't need lamps. Let's sit on the stone benches by the flower terrace." The husband tied his mule to a large column in the eaves and sat down. The woman then said to the wife, "My shoes are big. They might not have fit you well. Now that you can ride back, could you return them to me?" The wife gratefully returned the shoes. Shortly after, food and wine were served. The woman poured a cup of wine and said, "You've been separated for so long, and now you're reunited. Let's celebrate with this modest drink." The husband lifted his cup in response, and the group began drinking and chatting happily. As the evening wore on, the husband's attention shifted to the woman. He flirted with her openly, ignoring his wife, who sat in silence, pretending not to notice. The woman responded with playful glances and flirtatious remarks. Gradually, the atmosphere became more suggestive, and the husband, intoxicated, began making bolder advances. Eventually, the woman feigned drunkenness and excused herself. The husband followed her, leaving his wife alone. Exhausted servants fell asleep in the corridor, leaving the wife sitting by herself, overwhelmed with anger and shame. She wanted to leave, but didn't know the way home. After some hesitation, she decided to spy on them. Approaching a window, she overheard the sounds of intimacy and recognized her husband whispering the tender words he had once spoken to her. Trembling with rage and heartbreak, she felt helpless. Her despair grew so intense that she considered running into the fields and ending her life. Just then, her brother Sanlong appeared on horseback. Seeing his sister, he dismounted and asked what had happened. She tearfully recounted the story, and Sanlong, enraged, stormed into the house. Finding the doors locked, he picked up a large stone and hurled it through the window. A voice inside screamed, "He's been hit in the head! What should we do?" Hearing this, the wife panicked, fearing her brother had killed her husband. She scolded him, saying, "I didn't ask you to kill him. What now?" Sanlang retorted angrily, "You begged me to come, and now you blame me? I won't be ordered around like this." With that, he stormed off, pushing his sister aside as she tried to stop him. She fell to the ground, and when she looked up, he was gone. At that moment, she woke up. It had all been a dream. The next day, her husband returned, riding a white mule, just as in the dream. She was astonished but said nothing. Later, when they spoke, the husband revealed he too had dreamt the same events. Both were deeply unnerved by the coincidence. Shortly after, Sanlong came to visit his brother-in-law. During their conversation, he mentioned, "Last night, I dreamt you returned, and here you are today." The brother-in-law joked, "Good thing I didn't get hit by a stone." Startled, Sanlong asked what he meant, and the husband recounted the shared dream. Sanlong was stunned to find that all three of them had dreamt the exact same events, yet the identity of the mysterious woman remained a mystery. Zhu Er. In Changzhou, Jiangsu, there was a wealthy man named Li Hua who owned many fields. However, in his 50s, he had no son, only a daughter named Xiaohui, who was as beautiful as a flower. The couple loved her dearly. Unfortunately, when Xiaohui was only 14, she fell ill and passed away, leaving the family feeling desolate and cold. Li Hua then took a maid as his concubine, and over a year later, they had a son. Li Hua treated him like the apple of his eye and named him Zhu Er. Zhu Er grew up to be strong and handsome, a fine young man. However, he was naturally slow-witted. By the age of 5 or 6, he still couldn't distinguish grains, and his speech was unclear and stammering. Despite this, Li Hua didn't mind and loved him even more. One year, a blind monk came to the city to beg for alms. He claimed to know the secrets of people's households, and soon everyone believed he was a deity. The monk also boasted that he could determine life, death, and misfortune for others. When he went around begging, he specifically asked for hundreds or even thousands of coins, and no one dared refuse him. One day, the monk asked Li Hua for 100 strings of coins. Li Hua, feeling reluctant, offered him 10 strings. The monk rejected it, demanding 30 strings. Li Hua gradually raised the amount to 30 strings, but the monk harshly insisted, "You must give me 100 strings, not a penny less." Li Hua became angry and put the coins away, intending to leave. The monk, full of resentment, muttered, "Don't regret it! Don't regret it!" Not long after, Zhu Er suddenly began to suffer severe pain in his chest. He writhed on the bed, clutching and kicking, his face turning pale as ash. Li Hua, terrified, quickly took 80 strings of coins to beg the monk for help, pleading for the monk to save his son's life. The monk sneered and said, "You've brought me so much money, but what can a blind monk like me do?" Li Hua had no choice but to return home, only to find that Zhu Er had died. In great sorrow, Li Hua wrote a petition and took it to the county magistrate. The county sent men to arrest the monk and interrogate him. The monk tried to deny everything, but the magistrate ordered his men to beat him like a drum. They then searched his body and found 2 wooden figures, a small coffin, and 5 small flags. Enraged, the magistrate showed the monk his evidence of guilt. At this point, the monk grew fearful and repeatedly kowtowed, begging for mercy. The magistrate ignored him and ordered his subordinates to beat him to death with clubs. Li Hua bowed and thanked the magistrate before returning home. By the time Li Hua returned home, it was already dusk. He was sitting on the bed, talking to his wife, when suddenly a young boy hurriedly ran into the room and said, "Grandfather, why are you walking so fast? I ran after you but couldn't catch up." Looking at the child, he appeared to be about 7 or 8 years old. Li Hua was startled and was about to speak when he saw the boy disappear and reappear, almost like smoke or mist, and within the blink of an eye, he had climbed onto the bed. Li Hua quickly pushed the boy off the bed, but there was no sound when he landed. The boy asked, "Grandfather, what are you doing?" Before Li Hua could respond, the boy was back on the bed again. Fearful, Li Hua grabbed his wife and fled from the room, with the boy following close behind, calling out grandfather and grandmother nonstop. Li Hua ran to the room of his concubine and hurriedly closed the door. But when he looked back, the boy was standing right in front of him. Trembling, Li Hua asked, "What do you want?" The boy replied, "I am from Suzhou. My surname is John. When I was 6, my parents passed away and my brother and sister-in-law cast me away, sending me to live with my grandmother. One day while I was playing outside, I was bewitched by a monk who took me under a mulberry tree and killed me. After that, I was forced to serve him, becoming a restless soul unable to reincarnate. Fortunately, grandfather, you have cleared my name and I am willing to become your son." Li Hua said, "People and ghosts are from different realms. How can we live together?" The boy responded, "If you give me a small room with a bed and bedding and a bowl of cold porridge each day, I will ask for nothing more." Li Hua agreed to the boy's request, and the boy happily settled into the room alone. Each morning, he would wander about the house as if he were Li Hua's real son. One day, the boy heard the sound of Li Hua's concubine crying for her child and asked, "How many days has Zhu Er been dead?" When told it had been 7 days, the boy said, "Since the weather is cold, the body should not have decomposed. We should send someone to open the grave and check. If the body is intact, I can use it to bring Zhu Er back to life." Li Hua was overjoyed and took the boy to the grave. They opened the tomb and, upon checking the coffin, found the body unharmed. While Li Hua was grieving, he turned around and noticed that the boy had disappeared. Feeling perplexed, Li Hua instructed his servants to bring Zhu Er's body back home. Upon returning, they placed Zhu Er's body on the bed, and to everyone's astonishment, they saw his eyes move. Soon, Zhu Er asked for water, and after drinking, he sweated profusely. Once the sweat dried, he stood up, and the entire family rejoiced at his miraculous revival. Furthermore, Zhu Er had become remarkably intelligent and different from before. However, at night, he lay stiffly on the bed as though lifeless, his eyes closed just like a corpse. The family was alarmed, thinking he had died again. But as dawn broke, Zhu Er woke up as if from a dream. When asked about what happened, he said, "When I followed the demon monk, there was another boy with us, named Gezi. Yesterday, when you ran after me, I didn't catch up because I was saying goodbye to Gezi. He's now in the underworld, living comfortably as a foster son of Jiang Yuanwei. Last night, he came to invite me to play, and with his white-nosed yellow horse, he brought me back. Li Hua's wife asked, "Did you see your sister Hui there?" Zhu Er replied, "I don't know. I'll try to find out next time." A few days later, the boy told Li Hua's wife, "Huijie is doing well in the afterlife. She married the young master of Chu River and is adorned with jewels and feathers. When she goes out, she has 100 or more attendants paving the way for her." Li Hua's wife asked, "Why hasn't she returned to visit us?" The boy answered, "Once a person dies, they have no more ties to their living parents. Only if someone speaks in detail about their life can they recall their past. Yesterday, I asked Jiang Yuanwei to introduce me to Hui Ji. She asked me to sit on her coral bed, and I told her how much her parents missed her, but she seemed as if she were sleeping. I also reminded her that when she was alive, she liked to embroider paired flowers. Once, when she pricked her finger with the needle, blood stained the fabric, but she turned it into a red cloud pattern. Mother still keeps that fabric hanging on the wall by her bed, and when she sees it, she thinks of you. Did you forget this, sister?" Only then did she remember her past life and sorrowfully say, "When I see my husband, I will tell him I must visit my mother." Li Hua's wife asked when she would come, but the boy said he didn't know. One day the child told Li's mother, "Sister is about to arrive. There are many attendants, so prepare more food and wine." Shortly after, he ran back into the room and said, "Sister is here." He moved a chair into the main hall and said, "Sister, please sit and rest for a moment. Don't be too upset." However, no one else could see anything. The child led the family outside to burn paper and offer wine in a ritual. When they returned, he said, "The attendants and their carriages have temporarily gone." Sister asked, "Is the green brocade quilt I made, which had a small hole burnt by candle wax, still here?" Li's mother answered, "Yes," and opened a box to find it. The child said, "Sister wants me to place it in her old room. She's tired and wants to rest now. She will speak to mother tomorrow." The daughter of the Zhao family, who had been a close friend of little Hui and had embroidered with her before, dreamt that night of little Hui wearing a headscarf and purple shawl, looking as she did when alive. She spoke to Zhao's daughter, "I am no longer in this world. Meeting with my parents feels no different than meeting in the land of the living. I want to use your body to visit my family. Don't be scared." As dawn broke, Zhao's daughter, who had been talking with her mother, suddenly collapsed to the ground in a faint. After a while, she slowly awoke and told her mother, "Little Hui and aunt have been apart for just a few years, yet you already have white hair." Zhao's mother was shocked and asked, "Have you gone mad?" The daughter bid farewell to her mother and left. Zhao's mother sensed something unusual and followed her. She followed her all the way to Li's house, where Zhao's daughter immediately embraced Li's mother and cried. Li's mother, confused and alarmed, asked what had happened. Zhao's daughter said, "I came back yesterday, exhausted, and didn't get a chance to speak to mother. I have been unfilial, abandoning my parents halfway through my life, making you both miss me. How can I atone for this?" Li's mother immediately understood and wept, then asked, "I heard you are enjoying wealth and honor now. I am happy for you. But you are from a prince's family. How could you come back?" Zhao's daughter replied, "My husband treats me very well, and my in-laws love me. They don't mind that I am not beautiful." Little Hui had always supported her chin with her hand when alive. Zhao's daughter mimicked the gesture, and her movements resembled little Hui's perfectly. Shortly after, Zhu Er rushed in and said, "The people who came to fetch my sister are here." Zhao's daughter stood up to bid Li's mother farewell, crying, "My child is leaving now." Then she collapsed on the floor and fainted. After a while, Zhao's daughter woke up again. Several months later, Li Hua fell ill, and his condition worsened. No treatment or medicine worked. The child said, "It looks like this is inevitable. I fear there is no hope. 2 ghosts are sitting at the head of the bed, one with an iron staff, and the other holding a 5-foot-long hemp rope. I beg them day and night, but they won't leave." Li's mother wept as she prepared funeral clothes for Li Hua. At dusk, the child ran in and said, "All the idle people and women in the house, please step outside for a while. My brother-in-law is here to visit the old man." After a while, the child clapped and laughed. Li's mother asked, "What are you laughing at?" He replied, "I am laughing at those two little ghosts. When they heard my brother-in-law was here, they got so scared they hid under the bed like turtles." After a short time, the child greeted the heir and said, "Sister, I greet you." Then he clapped and laughed, saying, "I begged those two ghosts to leave, but they wouldn't. Now my heart is at ease." He walked out, then turned around and said, "My brother-in-law has left. The two ghosts were taken away by the leather straps tied around the horse's neck. Father will recover soon. My brother-in-law says he will pray to the king and ask for 100 more years of life for my parents." The entire family rejoiced. That night, Li Hua's illness indeed began to improve, and within a few days he fully recovered. After Li Hua recovered, he hired a teacher to teach the child to read. The child was very intelligent and passed the county exam at the age of 18. He could also talk about matters from the underworld. When he saw people in the village who were sick, he could point out where the ghosts were causing harm. He would use fire to burn them, and often the patients would recover. However, he suddenly fell seriously ill one day, with his skin turning dark and bruised. He said it was because the ghosts were angry at him for revealing their secrets and had punished him. After that, he never spoke of the underworld again. The Liaozhai Zhiyi, Complete Illustrated Tales of Liaozhai, Volume 11, presents a rich collection of stories from Pu Songling's famous work, Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio. This volume highlights ghostly and supernatural encounters, exploring themes of love, revenge, and morality, all portrayed through vivid illustrations that bring these eerie tales to life. On the Eastern Brush, Western Soul channel, a group of friends passionate about Eastern ink painting and ancient texts share translations and insights into these fascinating stories. Special thanks to Little Fish, who dedicated her free time to translate and reorganize the content of this 11th volume. We invite everyone to watch and enjoy the rich cultural experience.